Good morning. Welcome back to the broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, July 24th, 2021. And our top story this week, a Fayetteville, North Carolina mom creates coloring books to teach children financial literacy. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Kishana Hayward. She's a mother and also now a child book author. Kishana, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Awesome. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And look, I love this story. We love this story, I should say. What was the genesis? How did you come up with the idea to create child books around personal finance and financial literacy?
Right. So I'm a former educator. I taught 6 years in Washington, D.C., 1 year in North Carolina, which I'm currently residing in North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina. My 4-year-old daughter asked me, Mommy, what is credit? And I'm a teacher. So the teacher in me wanted to Google quickly how I know what credit is. My husband knows, as adults, we know what it is, but how do I explain it to a 4-year-old? So I went to the internet, didn't find any resources. So I said, okay. I went to the shower. The shower is where I get most of my keen ideas. So I'm showering up. I'm like, there we go. Coloring book. That's how she would understand it. She's 4. She's about to turn 5, but that's something that she can relate to. So 2 weeks goes by, create the book, put it up on Amazon, and here we are. So yeah, that's how the story came about.
Entrepreneurial, educational. it hits all those marks. What was the process that you went through? Look, speaking to a 4-year-old, very different than speaking to a 14-year-old. You're an educator. What was the process that you took to take what can be basic but oftentimes complex topics and breaking it down so that even a 4-year-old could understand?
Right. So I watch a lot of YouTube, right? So kids, especially during that age, 4 and up, really 65% approximately of people are visual. So that's the best way to do it for something so mundane as credit or so complex as credit, is to break it down into visuals, chunk it, right? So not bombard her all the time with that. She has a cash register, so she knows what money is. So I will break her down to her like, okay, these are the 3 credit bureaus, right? She said, what was a credit bureau? So we explain it with a visual. That's the best way I knew to do it. And that's where the coloring book aspect came into play, where she has a visual, she can color it. And my goal for the coloring book was to have each page be a teachable moment, not only for the child and my child, but for parents as well, who may not be subject matter experts. The back of every book is a guide to help them kind of go through some vocabulary and some things that, they may not understand as well. And that's okay. But that's just the teachable moment of it all. So to answer your question, visuals, that's the best way to break it down. Something so complex to simplify it for her to understand and others to understand.
Kishana, in terms of interest that other people, what you created is a tool that, as you said, parents can use with their children. And I would think educators like yourself could use in the classroom. Have you seen interest not only in your location, which is Fayetteville, North Carolina, but have you seen interest from around the state of North Carolina as well as around the country of what you've done and being a tool that can be used in any education setting?
Sure. So Charlotte, North Carolina, I've done some presentations. We did a financial literacy picnic. That was pretty cool. I did 2 presentations in Charlotte at 49ers University. So it's an elementary school. And there was another school that I did a presentation to. I think it was Socrates Elementary. And it went fantastic. Right. But as far as putting in the schools, I've talked to outside of North Carolina, Atlanta, and some other places to help make that a resource for their financial literacy component. But for the most part, they want a curriculum. And that's kind of what I'm working on now, to make it a full and cumbersome curriculum so that teachers can kind of teach it. It's not just a coloring book, which is helpful, but there'll be addition to, okay, this week we're doing this week we're doing this, and so forth and so on. So yeah.
And as an educator, I would imagine that there's different levels that you would tackle. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but here you wrote a coloring book,
right,
or coloring book, because there are multiple books here, that for your 4-year-old and try to, for their mindset. But what about, someone who's in middle school or someone's in high school or even college? We learn in different ways as we grow and develop. And by the way, I don't think we ever master the art of finance. It's probably something that you have to continue to learn over time. So are you planning to tackle these different elements along the way?
Oh yeah, so I have another book coming out called Bank. It's for teenagers because that's the number one request, right? I have like loyal, not subscribers, but loyal people who want the elementary book or the coloring book, but they're also saying, well, Kishana, I have a 15-year-old and he or she, wants to learn as well, but they're not going to color, so do you have any resources for that? So hence the next book that I'm working on. It'll talk about dividends. It'll talk about savings, budgeting, credit, of course. I'm breaking it down into a teenager's terminology so they have a basic understanding of finances, as basic as it can get, by the time they graduate high school. Because as we see now in 2021, a lot of kids are just not going to college, right? So if that is the case, right? So I want to make sure that I try to help prepare those kids that are not going to college and those that are going to college, to give them a resource to help guide them through financially so they can have a solid foundation as they go along. Because the credit card, offers will be coming in the mail pretty soon once they turn 18, sometimes sooner. So I want to make sure that they're prepared financially to have those, make those decisions.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, whether you decide to go to college or not, having that financial foundation really important. And at the end of the day, it's about financial security and independence. I guess last question, Kishana, where can people who are watching the program find your book? I know you mentioned Amazon, I think. Are all the books available there? Or are they available at other bookstores as well?
Yeah, sure. So Amazon is primarily where I have the books. I think the girls' book is on Barnes and Noble as well. I'll get the boys up there as well. But primarily Amazon is the way to go to get fast shipment and just kind of get it out to the people as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, we're so glad to meet you. So glad that you took time out of your busy schedule of being a mom and an author to share your story. And look, we look forward to your great success, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks, Kishana. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score, a credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. On Tuesday, I discussed America's failing grade in financial literacy with American Public Education Foundation's David Pickler. Let's take a look.
Well, Jeff, the unfortunate news is that we're not doing real well. In fact, 66% of all the states that we surveyed, and that was all of them plus Puerto Rico, received grades of C, D, or F. And so we really believe that America's schools are failing in their responsibility to really prepare children to be able to compete in the basics of our economy. And that's one of the reasons why we did this report card. This is the second report card that we did. We did one 2 years ago. And while we did see some improvement, there still is a lot of work to do. Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Jeff. When we really think about what is the role of public education, you know, it used to be, we talk about, as you said, the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. Then we went through a period of time when the total focus was on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math, all of which is great. But at the end of the day, I believe, and again, I spent nearly a quarter century of my life in public education as an elected school board member, as a national advocate, as a local volunteer, as a parent. And I believe that the fundamental responsibility of schools is to prepare children for learning, for leadership, for life. You know, we're living today in a world of exponential change. And one of the most important things that we can do to prepare our children is to teach them how to make good choices. You know, one of the most important things that we've seen over the past several years is the role of high schools and of public education of looking at the evolution of our workforce and the fact that far too many of our children are coming out of colleges overburdened with student loan debt, oftentimes with degrees and diplomas that have very little, if any, merit or any real value in the marketplace. Because for so many years, schools had this mindset that's every day, every child, college bound. You know, that was the goal, as opposed to really preparing kids for life and preparing kids to make good choices. And that's one of the reasons why we feel so strongly about financial education, about financial literacy, starting at the earliest grades, because it's not just about teaching kids about assets and liabilities and credit cards and mortgages and making sure that you get your paycheck is right. It's really about empowering kids to be able to make good choices. And that's one of the reasons why we are so strongly involved at the middle grades, of helping kids understand differences and some basics about careers, about opportunities. So when they go to high school, they're really armed with that ability to make good choices. And then hopefully having good and robust curriculum that can give them the tools necessary so that they can be successful in our economy. Far too many kids are coming out of our schools, you know, oblivious to this, and they're vulnerable to being victims of fraud, of credit card abuse, of taking on student loan debt where it's really not appropriate. And that's why really we believe that financial education is that basic building block of making good choices, whether it be about education, whether it be about your life. Well, it really is. And, you know, it's all about, everybody's excited about the fad of the moment. And, you know, we as Americans embrace that. I mean, you know, we celebrate celebrity. We're the nation that of the mood ring and the pet rock and the Beanie Babies. There's always been a fad. And if you think about the baby boomers, you think about the millennials, you think about the Gen Xers, we've all kind of been raised in this immediate gratification, short-term environment. And if you think about what's happened with social media, it's certainly just been another evolution of this revolution of how people look at the world. And we're no longer looking at the fundamentals of making good choices, of learning about living within your means, about managing credit, about making sure that you're not taking on too much debt, about understanding, about making good financial choices. We're all excited about the fun stuff. Why have the lotteries been so successful over the course of the past 10 years as a means to raise money for states? It's because everybody wants it today. It's that pursuit of immediate gratification, not going out and doing the hard work. Everybody wants to come out of college or come out of school and immediately be in the C-suite. They want to be the chief executive officer as opposed to starting out and doing the basic work. The reality is financial literacy is not sexy, but it's effective. And it's important, and I believe it's an essential ingredient of our ability to prepare our children for this evolving workforce of the 21st century. And it really, I believe, once again, is a fundamental responsibility of our schools to be able to ensure that our children have the tools, have the skills necessary to be competitive. Because, the mindset that has spurred, crypto and meme stocks and everything else is that pursuit of the easy answer, the easy solution. And let's go out there and have a lot of fun with it, but not really be concerned about the outcome. Well, at the end of the day, a great financial plan, a great financial future for our country is built upon creating those building blocks, about making sure that our children are prepared and giving them the tools. Because we all understand that if you build a great portfolio, then at the very top of that pyramid, there can be room for those speculative ideas. It can be the room for the meme stocks and the cryptos and things of that nature. Those are the cherry on top of the sundae. They're not the fundamental elements. And far too many people are trying to build a financial future built on shifting sand. And in many cases, when we think about crypto, on virtually nothing there at all. And that's problematic for us as a nation. It's problematic for how we're preparing our children.
And on Friday, I sat down with Florida State University's Richard Burnett to learn about the university's new financial literacy hub. Let's take a look.
So Florida State is a destination university. Most of our students come from over 4 hours away. In fact, 75% come from 4 hours away. So we've tried to make this a residential experience, and this past year, obviously, it was very difficult to do so. We are planning with the hope and expectation that we will have a fully in-person experience coming this fall, and we're hoping the Delta variant doesn't change that. I think the why is that we're an institution that is really concerned about students. We want to be an institution that serves the state of Florida, and that means the entire state of Florida. So we want to be able to have an affordable education, but we've also been very focused on student success for the past 22 years, and one of the most advanced institutions nationally in terms of the effort that we've placed on making sure that our students are successful in graduating. So we initially wanted to make sure they graduated. Now we want to make sure that they're graduating with the preparation to get a job, the preparation to be successful in life. And a lot of that has to do with money, being able to retain as a student. Can you afford it? We have the lowest tuition in the country in the state of Florida. But even at that, it's a challenge, especially when you have to pay for room and board and other expenses. So it's interesting. I mentioned student success. And so we've had 20 offices meeting every 2 weeks for 22 years. And so what we found out is for every 6 students that don't return, that's a 1/10 of a point reduction in our retention rate. And some of those things matter for the state of Florida, where they really focus on metrics. And so when we start getting those conversations, we start saying what was affecting students. And so we learn about these use cases, and we have a venue or a forum for which we can bring up these concerns that students have. And then we say, well, what can we do to fix that? And so in that process, we figured out a lot of things about paying for college, and we've created food banks for students, and we found ways for students to get jobs. But then you go beyond that. The Career Center started saying, well, when you get a job, how do you know how to negotiate to get the best salary or the best compensation package when you get your first job out of college? They've also said that employers want people who understand money and understand financial issues. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have as much co-curricular non-classroom learning as we do classroom learning. There's a great opportunity to do so. Absolutely. And I think it really becomes a point of information management. You talked about the fact that you don't know certain things you wish you knew about a 401k or your investing plan. But you can go out and find information. The problem is that there are thousands of references from various different financial organizations and the federal government and others throughout the country. And so what we tried to do is we tried to say, let's take people who are expert in a certain area and have them go out and cull through all the information and say, we like these 3 resources best, or these 2. Oh, here's a calculator you can use to figure out whether it's better to live on campus or off campus. Here's a budget sheet that helps you figure out how you're going to plan your next week's budget. Well, it's funny, Jeffrey, you mentioned the movie watching. So that kind of Netflix phenomenon is something that we kind of see as our financial literacy 3.0. So what we did with the site is there's a lot of information. So let's make it a form that if somebody doesn't know what they want to do, we start off and you say, paying for college. It's a topic. You can drill into that topic. Then the next one is planning and budgeting. You can drill into that one. Then you can go into banking and credit. Then you move on to investing and insurance, and then ultimately taxes. Of course, taxes that's the end of everything. But so you can drill in kind of a serial fashion like that. We've also marketed it to our prospective students, but also to our current students. We market it to their families, but we also market it to our staff and to our faculty so that people are aware and can direct. And so our student business services office, right on the front of their page, it says, hey, if you have questions, here's a site. And they put a little graphic up and it moves there. The site, by the way, is an original piece of work crafted by finding the best elements of 50 different sites from around the country. So we got a list of the 50 institutions that did this the best. And we started finding out what each one of those institutions did well and what they didn't. And so this whole effort is really to say, how can we tune and grow up the best practices of a lot of people and present it in a way that is good for our students.
Those were certainly great segments. I want to thank all of our great contributors this week. And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, and financial services for BRN Sunday, an analysis show of all the latest and greatest news. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.